Hey everyone, what's going on? Thank you for taking your time out on this evening and joining me with my co-host Pete. And we are talking to an awesome guest called Adam Contrast, who, if you guys are unfamiliar with, he made Fastest DeLorean Parts 1 and 2, or Fastest DeLorean in the World, whatever you want to call it, or it's been renamed now. So Adam, firstly, man, just thank you for taking time and being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Things are great. I'm excited to be here. It's fun talking to people overseas.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome, man. No, thank you for taking time out and joining us. And Pete, how are you, man?
I'm very well, very excited to be interviewing Adam, and good to see you as well, Mike.
Oh, awesome. Well, the thing is, for people that don't know, with the Fastest DeLoreans Part 1 and 2, I was unfamiliar with these movies until I spoke to Pete, because we are close friends. And he was like, have you ever seen the Fastest DeLorean Part 1 and 2? And I was like, no, what's that? I was a little bit familiar with Adam through Back in Time from a couple of years back.
Thank you, Jay Aaron.
Yeah, exactly.
I always give him a shout out. He's always, because more people know me from that than him. So
really?
Yeah, well, because I mean, he did what you're supposed to do as a director, and he didn't put himself in the movie. I put myself in all my movies, you know. So he's always like, God damn it, everybody knows you. What the fuck?
Your movie.
Right. Right. No, but that's really cool that at least you're more known than that. That's kind of cool. But yeah. So
the real quick irony is that the whole point of Fastest DeLorean was I didn't want to make something about me, because I did that for 20 years. It was so excited to focus on somebody else. And then, as you know, didn't have a lot of a choice in the matter afterwards. So anyway, keep going, sir.
No, very true, man. Feel free to butt in at any time. So one thing for anyone that's unfamiliar with Adam is he does something called The Journey, which started in 2000. Is that right?
He did.
Yeah.
January
Guinness World Record holder?
No, it's the Guinness Book of World Records first and longest running video blog. The plaque is right there. I can't pick up my camera and show you, but I'll give you a picture or whatever. But yeah, I finally got the plaque from Guinness last year. That's how long it took.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
So how did it take that long?
Well, first of all, they put me in the Guinness Book of World Records in 2016 is when they announced it. So it was in the 2017 book, and they didn't contact me. I had no idea. And one day I was Googling and I just found it. And I'm like, what the hell? How did I get in the Guinness Book of World Records? So then I contacted him and I said, don't I get like a plaque? I've seen people on the news, they get these plaques, and they're like, oh yeah, what's your address? And I'm like, okay. And I did my address and they just sent it to me. And I'm like, well, shit, I probably should have called the news and So I really wish I had known it a little bit early. It's been like 5-6 years now, but whatever.
Gee.
You can't take it away from me. I mean, it's a first record, so mean, I'm always gonna have that.
Yeah. Right. And just kind of like as a fun fact for myself, because I don't know this. But do you know if there's anyone like on your tail and like been shooting for like maybe a couple of years less than you? Or
I'll tell you what somebody did that was cool. Somebody did one video blog every single day for 10 straight years and got a record for that, which, my God, dude, like that's crazy. Like I can't even imagine having the ability to upload, just be on an internet connection for 10 straight years, basically. I don't know anybody who's done it as long. Obviously they didn't do it before YouTube in 2006.
Right.
You know, so let's say somebody decided to start in 2006. I guess you'd be at 15 years or whatever, but I had a 6-7 year head start. So as long as I keep doing it, I'll have it till I die. And maybe I'll pass it to my kids and they can just continue it.
Right. Because I heard that you still use, do you still use the 90s software to upload it? You still
I
use
do.
that?
Real quick, the reason I'm laughing at this, my daughter wanted to dye my hair purple. And so I'm making sure you guys can see the hue of purple because she was so proud of making it purple. And I think it's coming across. No, the actual journey, the written part of the journey is still done on 90s software. I'm not doing it to get famous and that kind of stuff. It was more just documenting my road to try to make it in show business and everything that was happening. And so, like, if I was on TV, that's a journey entry. This will be a journey entry. I'm just documenting everything that happens. And then after I had started that, YouTube became YouTube, and then people were actually able to monetize it. And I don't do that, and I don't really want to, because I don't want to affect the journey by putting stuff in I think would make people watch, because then you're not doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And I thankfully I make money doing other stuff. I can be as pure as humanly possible with a journey and literally just document what happens.
Yeah.
And good or bad, boring or exciting. And I got to be honest, I've been very lucky, because shit's been really exciting the last 20 years. Like really, really good stories, pretty organically, not for me trying to make crazy shit happen.
Yeah. Well, no.
And Fastest DeLorean's a perfect example of that. The goal was, wouldn't it be exciting if we put an engine in a car and drag race it? That was more than enough excitement for me. That was all I wanted to do. And then it turned into what it turned into. So that's the journey.
Yeah, man, but that journey is awesome, and like I admire the fact that you mentioned you don't want to do like a monetization on YouTube because it affects kind of your own personal reason why you started it in the first place. And it'll just be like maybe like people watch along just for the sake of watching along if you had it monetized. So yeah, no, completely respect that. And,
I had a stalker take my channel down, and so
okay.
When I tried to contact YouTube, basically through friends that work there, they basically said, if you're not monetized, you'll never talk to anybody. So I'm like, fuck. So then I did put monetization on it. And then right away they were like, you can't monetize because everything you have is copyrighted. And I'm like, what in the fuck are you talking about? Like nothing I have on there is copyrighted. Literally don't realize that I'm the guy that made Meeting Michael. I was the guy on CBS. So they looked at my top views and thought I was just taking copyrighted content and putting it up on YouTube. And but they're giving me the ability to make a 5-minute video that they say they're going to watch and review. So finally I can say, listen, here's what I'm doing. I'm not stealing copyright material. It's literally me. The funniest thing ever. I couldn't believe that's what they thought I was doing. But hey, that's kind of cool. It's kind of a, that's a nice little pat on the back that what I've done looks professional enough to be stolen.
Yeah.
Like in the DeLorean, Fastest DeLorean, I really liked the music, and then when I looked into it, if I'm right in saying, tell me if I'm wrong, like all of the music throughout it is you.
Right. That is true. There was one song that I licensed because it just looks so cool. It was like this Irish Celtic music that I did for the St. Patrick's Day parade. And there's just this one shot with the snow coming down and the fucking music, and I'm like, fuck it. Like that's just, I want that in the movie. So I paid him $100 or whatever it was. It was just a local dude like me. And but yeah, for the most part, I did all that music. And in Meeting Michael, the movie that came out in 2020, I actually got a keyboard and I scored it, and I used that was a lot harder. But boy, I love that aspect of creating. Never gotten to do it before, so it's been really nice.
Meeting Michael, where I think Mike will agree with me here. In the UK, basketball isn't a major sport, and I watched Meeting Michael. I don't know if Mike's watched it yet. And I didn't know anything. I knew who Michael Jordan was, obviously, but I don't really know anything about basketball. But afterwards, all I was doing was YouTubing and Google basketball, Michael Jordan highlights, stuff like that, because it was just so good.
Thank you. No, I love doing that. It was it's one of my proudest ballsy things I've ever done in my life, which is sneak a video camera into the Bulls locker room and then get onto the court and just start recording. I mean, I think about it now, I would never do this, but at 1920, I'm like, what the fuck are they gonna do? And then of course I couldn't release it because it's fucking, but 25 years later, obviously, I mean, if you go on IMDb, there's Michael Jordan starring and I'm co-starring, and I'm like, I don't know how the hell this is working, but they must be okay with it now. So I guess, time heals all wounds there. Oops.
But it was just the fact that you were at the right game where everybody was there.
Yeah. It was exciting. It was a very cool day, and it was fun showing it to my kids,
No, that's awesome, and I mean, I've not seen it yet. I will hold my hands up, but it sounds a bit like kind of like what Space Time sequel should have been.
Give LeBron a break. What was he supposed to do? He's not an actor. It's funny. My kid loves LeBron James and doesn't care about Jordan, really, and you could tell that in the movie because he starts playing his Game Boy. But I mean, it's whatever you grew up with, you know. And you know, Space Jam 2 is just as silly and stupid as Space Jam 1. Let's be honest, man. Like, but we love Jordan and we love Bill Murray, and I mean, you know, it's all just what you grew up with. Neither of them are really good movies, like at all.
No, that's very true. It's very true.
Very fun.
So Adam, what we'll do is I've got a couple of questions about the fastest DeLorean. I'm going to break this up into kind of like two. So we're going to talk about the first movie first, and of course the second movie last.
I'm glad we're doing that because I told you were like, let's just do it on part one, and I'm like, kind of impossible because you know 2 answers every question you're going to have. But go ahead, yeah, I like that. Let's do.
One thing I want to know, because I'm not familiar about this as well, is how did you originally come in possession of the DeLorean, or was it because of the seeing Back to the Future inspired you, or did you just see it advertised one day and thought, screw it, I'm just going to buy a DeLorean?
You know, we covered this in Back in Time a little bit, but I made that mini golf course in my backyard, and thought, wouldn't it be cool to like do themes? And then I thought, oh, I'll make a Back to the Future hole, and wouldn't it be cool if there was a time machine at the event? And so I was just because we were doing events to raise money for charities. So I was friends with Jennifer Parker, Claudia Wells on Facebook, and I asked her if she would help, and she said totally. I said, you know anybody with a time machine? And she did. And so we set up this whole thing. I had a friend in radio, so we go on the radio station. We announced it Memorial Day 2014, and then the guy who was going to bring the time machine said, I'm selling my car. And I'm like, fuck, I just went on the radio. What are you doing? And he was being a little flighty, so I said, fuck it, I can't let everybody down. I'm gonna do this. And my mother-in-law was looking for an investment. Ironically, I didn't ask her. She was like, "Oh, what you gonna do with this money?" Blah blah blah. And I just was like, you know. And here was the way I said it was, if this doesn't work, we're gonna be able to resell the car at the height of all this shit in 2015. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, Future Day 2015 is going to be the peak of what that car is going to be worth. Little did I realize cryptocurrency would blow up, and now it's worth $250,000. But I knew we were going to get our money back for at least what we put into it. So I said, give me a year. And I bet, and my God, 2015 was the craziest year ever. And not only made my money back, but it became obviously a way to like pay the bills. It was quite clear after 2015, and even 2016, it's 27. Like you started saying, wow, this is a business. People really like the DeLorean time machine.
Right.
Worked out well.
Yeah, man, definitely. When you touched on 2015 as well, here in the UK, in London, they did a film Comic-Con, and they were celebrating the Back to the Future anniversary. And at that anniversary, I got to meet Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd and other people there. You know, definitely one of the best days of my life, hands down.
So you were at the London Comic-Con?
I was, yeah. Were you, Pete?
No, I wasn't at that one, unfortunately.
So you actually remember some things about Claudia and Michael. Do you remember? Yeah. Do you that?
I remember
that moment. That is on tape somewhere, but I will not say how I know that. But my goodness, that was one of the most awkward things I've ever seen in my life.
So, really?
We'll just move ahead.
Yeah. Well, but now, yeah, we'll move on. So I mean, with that in mind, and so we've got a bit of backstory now about how you came in possession of the DeLorean, how you've used it since, and it's livelihood for you. You know, you document this as well in Fastest DeLorean. You know, this is your livelihood for you, your family, and this is what pays the bills.
It is.
So from here on in, we're going to go under a bit of spoilers about Fastest DeLorean. So for anyone who's not seen it, I mean, thank you for tuning in. But
I will say this. We can tell you every single spoiler.
Yep.
And this happened to me even. And you watch it, you forget it within 20 minutes. And I swear to God, the spoiler comes in and it hits you like a 2x4. I've been in my own screenings of my own movie. And I'm like, it's kind of cool. I'm kind of watching with, and then the Kenny texts come and you go, oh, fuck. Like you don't at all. So I don't stop watching. I'm telling you, like, this is kind of almost spoiler free, honestly.
I'll go with you on that. watched it twice this week in preparation for the interview, and both times when the Kenny texts come in, I still sit there and go,
Yeah.
I got to give myself some editing props, but it's not even my editing props. That's exactly how it felt, because that's exactly how it happened. It was that big of a 2x4 to my face. So yeah, it's real. I mean, that is a real. That's also what was. Thank God for text, right? Imagine me having to just like tell the story. That's where I like stop the camera, stop the movie. I'm like, I'm just gonna show you what happened. Read the text, and because I can't tell the story. It's that. Real. So
well, the first question I've got, Adam, is regarding you and Don. Anyone who's unfamiliar with Don is in Donald Full of Love, of course, Mayor Goldie Wilson, Back to the Future, and other projects that he's been a part of. So basically, in this movie, it's just you and Don sat at your bar at your house, and you guys are just telling the story about this fastest DeLorean and how this wacky idea kind of came to fruition. But how did that kind of come around with you and Don? Did you just sit down one day and say, "Look, I want to talk about this journey. Will you be in the bar with me and we talk about this?" Or how did you agree to
that Memorial Day event that I needed to get the car for? I ended up making the new one. It was my car at it, and he was at the event with Claudia, and the news came out. We did our little bit, and Claudia leaves. Everybody leaves, but Tom grabbed another beer and got pissed because he didn't do well in the golf game. And he's like, "Man, fuck this! I got to at least make par," because he's a real golfer. So he was really annoyed that these jerks were killing. So he came back, and I turned to my friends. I was like, "Oh, we hooked him. Like, he clearly understands." It's a very fun little mini golf course. And then I asked him a month later, "Would you like to reenact the $39,999.95 commercial?" And I made a Rent the DeLorean commercial. I said, "Listen, I'll give you a package on the site. People can have you in the car at the same time." And he's like, "Man, that's a great idea." So we did that. We started hanging out, and then right around the same time, I was doing an interview show called Hats and Mini Golf, where we would wear silly hats, play mini golf, and do an interview. And he was one of my guests. And then again, you just start to form a friendship. And at the end of 2015, the following year, we had done so many things together. And there was this camaraderie. I got to say this carefully, but we would end up in places that we would not normally be. That's the best way to meaning we're there because he's Goldie Wilson. I have the car, but then 5-6 hours, and you're standing there going, "Fuck, I would not normally be here." And there's a camaraderie with people. It's like the crew. It's like people that are working behind the scenes. There are moments where you're like, "Man, I just want to go home. This is not where I would normally be." And that's when we started hitting it off. So we did a thing where we took, you remember the Pepsi Perfects?
Yeah.
All right, so there you got one on there. We opened one of those when they were really expensive and made a drink with Lagavulin whiskey, and we talked about all of 2015 at the bar. We called it a Pepsi Perfect with Mayor Goldie Wilson. It's a little 45-minute video where we just talked about the crazy events that happened to us, and that was fun. And we maintained friendship, always doing events together, hanging out. He came back actually and won one of the mini golf tournaments. Like beat all the like professional players. I was like, damn, awesome. He was really pissed about that. And what I ran into with Fastest DeLorean was obviously when everything blows up, and even after I'd gotten the record, I could not think of a way to tell this story. I just couldn't think of a way to tell the story, because if I did a voiceover, it would look manipulative. Yeah. I needed somebody to bounce stuff off of. And I just called him. I said, I got an idea. How about I just tell you the whole story? Right. And because I need some interaction, because I know the viewers are going to have it, and I don't want to automatically. I said, can I just, so that was a pretty open. I had a list in front of me. I told him everything that happened, and that was the reactions we had. And then it was a good way for me to like piece together, piece together the story in a way that didn't seem so manipulative. That was the problem I was having, is because if I said a voiceover of what had happened, everybody's like, "Oh, there's clearly another side." And that was what I ran into with Fastest DeLorean is I'm telling you exactly what happened. There is no other side. It's not even my side. This is literally what I got. But how do you tell that story in a way where it doesn't feel manipulated? So that's where Don came in, because he could at least stop me and go, wait a second. Why the fuck did this, it allowed for some like real, like back and forth.
Yeah.
To get through some parts I knew the audience was thinking anyway. So it worked, and we had good chemistry. And when he's angry with me in part 1, he's angry. Like, tell the fucking story, Adam. Why are you doing this? And it was actually it ended up being better than I actually thought it would be. For that part.
Yeah, because I mean, like I've got written down on my notes here from when I'm watching it, saying that the way you did the text thing with Kenny, like you say, you could have quite easily gone, so I had this text from him and it said this and it said that, but the way you just went, here's what it is, pop, 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 and all the text will pop up. You couldn't have done it in a fairer way.
Basically, the only thing you can say negatively on me, there's 2 things you could ever say. One is I completely made up the texts. It's all fake, right? I mean, I still have them on my phone. I could literally scroll them up right now. Or I am his brother and should not release the movie at all. Those are really the only 2 takes you could have.
Yeah.
And what I always try to tell people is we were doing this in real time in public. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was the Fastest DeLorean website. We were putting videos on YouTube. There was like all of this was happening live, so it's not so easy to just say, well, don't show it. I'm like, we were showing it the whole fucking time. And then I had to take it down in the middle. And I'm like, fuck, So, and even through that, I didn't really, even after I did the Don stuff, didn't release it. And then the car blows up, ends up, it's Kenny's fault. And that was when I finally said, okay, I can't lose everything. I can't lose my business, my car, my life, maybe. And then be like, well, I better not tell the story. Fuck, man. I gotta have something to show for all of the sacrifices. So that's kind of the order of all that.
Yeah, because I mean, like throughout the entire thing, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's basically like an emotional roller coaster. Because at one point I was like, oh, okay, I'm getting a bit of a casual chat between Adam and a Back to the Future legend as such. Yeah. And then the next point is, okay, well, this car's going through X, Y, and Z components getting added to it or taken out, whatever's going on. And then we've got this dynamic of Kenny, which at this point I was like, oh, well, it's just Adam's mechanic as such. Right. And then you got the part where it's eventually leading to you trying to beat the fastest time on the track. And then
to help the viewer, the basic outline of the movie is set up in the first 2 minutes, which is have this car. There's a problem with the transmission. My brother happens to be builds performance race cars, and he came out end of 2016 and said, you know what? Probably put a faster car in there, or a faster engine in there, and solve all your problems with it starting and just the reliability of it, and also make it fast. I'm like, well, I wonder what the fastest DeLorean is. So I found it out. And I went, hey, Kenny, can we beat this? He's like, yeah, we can beat that. And I was like, well, shit, I got an idea. Let's make a movie about you change out the engine, and then you drag race it, and I'll just document everything you did. And I thought that was that would be an interesting thing to showcase by itself, and then as we're all kind of alluding to, in the middle, Kenny kind of drops out. And then I get stuck with a car that doesn't work, and then am kind of forced to do it myself. So it's really stressful.
Yeah, because as in your words, as I've written down here, I'll never drive that fast. After the first race, you went, I'll never drive that fast. I'm not driving that car for hell that fast.
And again, people think that I just made the documentary and said that, and I keep having to remind them, oh no, these were all tiny little videos in a video diary that happened before I knew any of that shit. Like, they're like, oh, there's a black cat in the car. Really? Yeah, there's a fucking black cat in the car. And at the time, I thought that was alluding to how scary that truck was. So it's really interesting when you're very honest in each individual moment. Sometimes you look back and you got a great fucking story. You don't have to add anything to it. you know.
I mean,
Right.
that's one thing I've got here about the shipping of the car. I mean, you've seen my van. You love my wheel trims, you said, but I would never even put my van on that, and it's nowhere near worth what you've got.
Right. Yeah. I ordered a covered truck, and it was covered with plastic. It was so scary. It's funny, there's a longer version on the video diary of Fastest DeLorean. It's a good like 12-minute video of me loading that car in, because you never know what you got to shoot everything and see what the story is going to be.
Right.
But that was by far one of the scariest things ever. And as I say in the movie, there's no other car on the truck. I'm holding a piece of paper that says this dude, like, if this disappears, what the fuck do I do next? Like, it didn't. Like, that was great, but oh my god, what a nightmare, right?
And there was parts falling off the bottom of the car as you're reversing it on, and it's
It was so bad. It was so bad. I can't drink right now. Please don't. Like that. Woo, yeah, that was scary. It worked out though. It worked out.
I mean, we can all relate into a car though, because it's like if we decided, like, say for example, if we wanted to transfer an item that was like worth so much money to us, whether it was in your case obviously a physical vehicle, we can all relate into, like, in terms of a little part comes off, you freak out.
Yeah, and I also knew I wasn't going to be the one driving it off, so you just kind of have to hope. Yeah, it was a hell of a start to. Like, I was hoping that was the only drama. Like, in my head, I'm like, boy, once we get through this, it's going to be smooth sailing. No.
You say about it driving off, you're on the phone to Kenny, aren't you, at the time, when he's driving it off? And what makes me laugh is that you say, yeah, I'm still going. He's saying, you go, how long's the truck? And I'm thinking, well, you loaded it on the truck. You must know how long the truck is.
But you can also see it. Like, in my head, I'm just so nervous that it's not going to get off in one piece.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, it's the start and the stop. Basically, the car was starting in third gear.
Oh, wow.
And the automatic only had 3 fucking gears. So that's why he was having such a hard time, like, because you got to hit it. And then once you get it going, it's hard to get it. And he's like, this car runs like shit. And as we found out, all it was some melted wires. You just put them back together. It would have been fine.
Yeah, that's something I've got. He said when he took the engine out, and he says it was about a $13 or $14 cable. Would that have solved everything?
Yeah.
Wow.
It absolutely would have solved everything.
But you probably wouldn't have got the fastest DeLorean there because it was an automatic.
Oh, no. It would have been, do I just call, like, had I known what I know now, would I just call the whole thing? I'll say this, though. Because the engine and transmission were actually in such good shape, I was able to sell the whole drivetrain.
Okay.
So, and that person was very happy because they knew I wasn't lying. We literally showed the video of bringing it out. It was a low mile DeLorean that had run fine up until then. So that did actually kind of work itself out, but that was a moment, knowing how bad things got. Ooh, just shipped it right the fuck back, called it a day. But I was already in. I'd already made the website. We were already documenting it. I wasn't going to turn back then.
No.
Right. Yeah, I don't blame you. So, so the movie came out in 2018. So, Adam, how long roughly were you in kind of like editing the movie together before releasing it?
So this actually funny. 5 years ago is when all of it happened. So basically, it's all the dates are on there. January to April. I think we got the record August of 2017. I sat on that for a while, not knowing what to do. And then I think it was November or December of 2017 that I shot the stuff with Don. And then I just sat on it. I'm not kidding. I did not do anything with it. I kept looking at the footage and going, there's just no way to not make him look good. Like I didn't want to release something just to make my brother look bad, but I kept coming back to the goddamn the starting race, the drag race. The car stalls. And I was like, man, that was such a classic real moment. Like I still feel the pit in my stomach and all the guys are making fun of us. And like, you know what I mean? Like all the guys at the track are making fun of it. And it was such an amazing moment. I just was like, how do I release this with making Kenny look as good as I possibly can? And then the car explodes on January 20th, 2018.
Yeah.
And that is when I said, I'm going to make Fastest DeLorean 1. So basically, for about 9, I cleaned all the parts. I fixed it. I got the car running on February 3rd, I think, is when I finally fixed it after the thing. And then I was waiting on a part in between that time, and I edited the whole movie in like 5 days.
Oh, wow.
But now also realize, because I was making these video diaries all along, the organization was pretty much there. You know what I mean? Like, I was editing at the moment. So what my editing came down to is the timing, and what do you put in, what do you take out, how do you keep it exciting for the viewer, stuff with Don and back and forth. So I really did that in like 5 days.
Sure.
Wow.
And at the time when you were thinking about, okay, I'm going to make this as like having a chat with Don and we're going to discuss this process, did you have anyone else in mind to do that instead of Don, or Don said, look, I couldn't do it? Would you have had someone else on?
I probably wouldn't have released. I mean, wow. Who else would it be? Like, you know what I mean? Well, it's funny because when I told him what I was doing, I mean, we were really close before Fastest DeLorean. We had done so many events and hung out and so forth, so we were already friends by that point. And when I told him, "Hey, dude, know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put a new engine in, and we're gonna drag race it for the record." And he's like, "When's the race? I need to be there." But it's because he's like, "I'll let you do all the work, but then I'll be smiling at the finish line with you." And I'm like, "Of course you will." Like, that's
all the glory.
That's exactly Flash. That's the Flashy Don full of love. And I'm like, "All right, dude. All right, let's do this." Made up the shirts and everything for him, and I kept trying to tell him. I said, "Man, this would be really good for you." I told him, "Have you seen the Porsche commercial that they did about?"
Yes, yeah.
And I was like, "God damn it, dude! You are a viable entertainer in the year 2022." And I desperately wanted to show him that side. We were pitching a reality show called The Mayor and Me, where we talk about all this crazy shit that we get to do together. But he makes me so crazy because he's often late that I think it'll probably just be a documentary someday when like we're both like 90. Here's
Has any of that ever been released yet? That Mayor and Me.
No. It's gonna turn into a documentary. It's just gonna be a 2-hour documentary where we give a bunch of everybody's shit and show it. It's kind of like what Fastest DeLorean 2 was. Like, when we showed you those parts, there's a bunch of awesome stories about what we've been through that's really weird. I don't know any other friendship that is built around so many bizarre situations, because of my job and his job. We have really weird jobs, like, it's really weird.
Because I heard you say in another interview that that off camera he talks to you one way, and as soon as the camera on, he goes, anyway.
No, he does, and I don't. Obviously, like I have to remind myself sometimes if I'm on TV or radio to not talk the way I talk. But yeah, Don is that old school Hollywood where you've got to be professional, put the face on, and this and that, and that kind of annoys me sometimes. Like, it really frustrates me. You see it in part 2, for sure. How annoyed we get with each other sometimes.
Well, I'm excited to dive into part 2 because I've got some questions that we've touched on so far into part 2. Right. But so far, continuing on with the theme with Fastest DeLorean 1 now. So as the movie goes on, again, we've kind of touched on like the big spoiler, I guess, of the movie and kind of the twist that. Right. I didn't see it coming because I remember when I was watching it, I was seeing a beat. I was like, I'm like halfway through. I was at the timestamp, and he's like, "Oh, do you know about his brother?" And I was like, "What are you on about?" So even then, kind of like a subtle hit in my face, I didn't get it. But
you should have seen the message he sent me when he saw it.
Yeah. We'll not talk about that message, but yeah. But no, nothing bad. But yeah, Adam, the question I've got is when, of course, we kind of find out about this, twist in the story as such. Like, what experience? I was going to ask you, like, what's your experience in terms of fixing cars? Did you do that before on like a DeLorean or?
Literally, not one thing.
Wow.
Not even. I mean, literally nothing. The only experience I have is I'm a good problem solver, and I've done construction stuff, and I have an engineering head. Like my brain can kind of see things, and I mean, I guess I do. I can say that just because now when I look back, I think, well, I must have, because clearly I've done it. I've kept that car running for 5 years, and it was a complete piece of shit. So I must have known something, but I really just think that I have a really healthy dose of, I bet I can do that. And when it's paying your mortgage, the fuck are you gonna do? You're gonna walk away? I certainly couldn't pay anybody to help me, because they were like, hang on a second, you got a DeLorean with a what transmission, and what's the
right?
Like, I'm not touching that fucking car. So Ray helped me, like giving me little pointers here and there. The DeLorean community helped a bit, and believe it or not, there's some LS3 swap DeLoreans that had done it, and so they could kind of help me. But you basically just have to get your hands dirty and bloody and keep doing it till the car starts. And there's no other, like that moment in part 2 when it starts and I'm like tearing up. That's the most real moment of my life, dude. I can't watch that now without crying, because my babies are outside. I'm like, holy fuck, everything's gonna. I at least I can hear it running. Oh God. I just might be able to pull this off. So no, I don't have a background at all, other than putting a hammer and nail together and basically knowing how shit works, gravity. That's about. And also, YouTube's fucking amazing, dog. Like, oh my God, if you got a healthy set of balls and YouTube, you can accomplish all sorts of shit.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree, and I admire that about you. I don't know that the fact that you used all those resources to fix it yourself, because I remember the part in the first movie, and it was a case of there was a certain part that needed fixing or certain things needed swapping, and they give you the price, and it was like, okay, then by the time you add the labor on, and I was like, wow, that went up pretty quick. I mean, we don't charge labor that much here in the UK, as far as I'm aware, but I was like, wow. Like, that was nuts.
Well, I mean, DeLoreans. That's the thing about a real old niche car. Like they can charge whatever the fuck they want. There's literally nothing you can do. But the other thing to be said is that any car from 1981 isn't that complicated. Like, and it's all been done before, right? So my problem, of course, is all the parts that need to be fixed are from 2015. Mixed with all the wiring and from 1984 or 81. So it is the clusterfuck of all clusterfucks.
That's the best way of putting it.
It's so tiring. Like, for example, this is the most recent problem I've had for the past 2 or 3 years. Sometimes you turn the key, doesn't start, just straight up. Doesn't go da 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 da. It just nothing. And then boom, it starts. It's intermittent. And so it's like, it feels like, it's not getting gas or something's going on. I get new fuel pumps. I clean out all the gas lines. I do all this stuff, and we're in forever. Just today, I think I solved it. Right?
Really?
Yeah. And you know what it was? Remember the clutch, before we did the drag race, Ray and I put in this clutch pedal thing that allows the thing to come on, because you need it for a safety device. You got to depress the clutch to turn it. I think the wiring in that little switch was just getting bad. Wow. So bypassed the switch, works perfect. That's it. I just had to bypass the fucking switch. It's like the same, The Force Awakens. I bypassed the compressor. Like, it's the exact same thing. And I think, I mean, knock on wood, I've done it. I've started it 8 times perfectly. I think that's all it was. But my God, dude, like, you're talking about the tiniest little mechanical things. You never know what to look at. I could spend 20 hours a day on that thing and still not know.
Talking about parts. I mean, I've got here that you budgeted for originally for 16,000, and then was Kenny came back and said 8, which was great. And then you said that you'd spent 25. Now, not without wanting to skip ahead. In the second one, you then said you'd spent an extra 10.
Mhm.
Since you've done that, how much do you reckon that it's cost you to do what you needed to do?
All right, so since 2, that's 2019.
Mhm.
Not much, honestly.
No.
I think now it's been the normal. Well, the fucking axles fell off. There's 500. There's a lot of weird shit that's happened. But like, for example, the axle fell off January 21st, 2021. So just a year ago. Basically, the motor was hard mounted onto the frame instead of you normally have rubber and shock. For whatever reason, Kenny thought it was cool to hard mount it. Well, it makes everything loosen. No matter what you fucking do, you put Loctite in there, it doesn't make any difference. A hard mounted fucking motor on your frame is going to shake everything loose, and you can sit there and tighten. So I finally got safety wire through all the bolts, and now everything's in place, and it's been that way for a year, and everything's been fine. It used to be if I went 100 miles, the bolts started coming out, I have to screw it all in. Again, there's just a lot of tiny, stupid little engineering things. But again, thankfully, I've put the whole fucking thing back together.
Yeah.
I mean, after the fire, I rewired it myself. I put all the parts back together. Like, it's kind of on me now. If there's a problem, I blaming Kenny's over. Like, it's my now. It's been 5 years, and so that it's good. I feel like I have a hold of it. It feels safe. I understand it better. My problem is there's all this maintenance you should probably do to it, like preventative maintenance that I never do because I can't afford for that car to be down.
No,
because I have all these gigs. So you really have to wait till something happens until you fucking, until you go in. Because even an oil change, sometimes I've had oil changes where I fuck something up and it's gone for 2 days. Well, if I get a call, I get day of calls all the time. That might be $1,000 I just lost because I decided to do a fucking oil change. Like, so you really have to be very careful about what you choose to do and what you don't do.
So Adam, so where you're based then? So what would you say is the kind of competition like in terms of people who have DeLoreans and hire out?
It's gotten pretty competitive lately.
Okay.
I'm telling you, the cryptocurrency buzz, man. The second all that shit blew up in like 2019 or whatever, people started buying stupid shit, and then they wanted to make money off the stupid shit they bought. And so, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't need the amount of events and gigs I did in 2019. Like, I did so many. 2019 was bigger than 2015, 2016 put together. It was crazy. Right. I was so tired. Ironically, at the beginning of 2020, I was like, man, all I want to do is just hang out with my family for a little bit. Oops. Sorry, everybody. I might have had something to do with that.
What happened?
Yeah, right. So, yeah, it's definitely gone down a little bit. But, I'm just located so perfectly. There are people in the area, but I'm in like North Hollywood. I'm in the heart of Los Angeles. I'm closer to almost every big gig and event that you could have in this area. There's a guy in Culver City. There's a guy in Riverside, Escondido. There's all these places where people are that they're close, and they've taken some of those gigs. But I've also gotten them some of the gigs if I'm double booked. We're all just trying to feed the demand, like it's not. I'm sure they were kind of pissed when I came along because I made a really nice website and I got a lot of the work, as it were. But I got them a lot of work too. Like we're all just, we're trying to get the client, make sure the client's happy. That's everybody. I'm just one of the only people that do it as the sole source of income. That's where we differ. Most people, it's a hobby. It's something random they do. Like for example, I got a gig for somebody on a date that I'm booked. He's kind of a hobbyist, so he's happy he's making $1,000, but they're asking for a certificate of insurance. And I know he's in trouble because he's not going to have that because he's just some dude. Like it's going to cost him you know what I mean? So if you're not a normal professional used to doing this, you don't have the right types of insurance sometimes. And that's why I end up getting most of the gigs because I do this professionally. So I have all that shit.
Yeah.
So,
because of course, when the car was down, and Kenny was building the engine and stuff, it was amazing that you managed to get a loaner car.
that was
I was just some guy said, "Could you house this for me?" Fuck yeah!
one of the most fortunate things ever. It was exactly as I said it, man. That guy Evan Dahlm, I remember he's since sold the car, but you know I asked him, I was like, "Do you want these gigs?" And he just wasn't that into doing that stuff. He made a bunch of money doing other shit, so he needed to get rid of his storage unit, and he's like, "Can you house it for a couple months?" I'm like, "Yeah." Is it okay if I take it on gigs? He's like, "Sure." I'm like, "Yeah, it's good, dude." So it was exactly like 2-3 months. Perfect. And then when I was in Columbus with the car, I did gigs in Columbus with I did as much as I could to be as efficient as humanly possible with my time and money to make that as less painful as possible.
Yeah.
Just, so that did work out well.
Right. Get you. No, that's an awesome story. And what we would probably say is that guy's an absolute legend for giving you the DeLorean for that amount of time.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many legends. Like from him to Ray to the fucking what's his name? Raphael the Repo Man.
Oh, Raphael, what a legend!
My favorite guy of all time.
I want to.
We're going to get into Raphael very shortly.
Right. I'm jumping
we've got
ahead.
a couple of comments just there. My friend Adam said, just, "Hey guys, how's everyone doing?" And I've also got my friend Trav to said, "Hey Z, hope everyone's doing well." So yeah, I've got a couple of people watching right now with the stream. So going into this kind of what we've been talking about there, Adam, and you mentioned about having that loaner car of the DeLorean, and as we're getting towards the end of the movie, what was your thoughts kind of going into the track and realizing that you are going to be driving the car?
First, I hired Ray.
Right.
I hired the guy to come. I literally go on Facebook. I'm like, "Has anybody ever run a quarter mile?" Because holy shit, the guy who was supposed to do it decided to ghost. And Ray said, "Yep." And I talked to him. That's the video that's on there. I let him stay at my house. I picked him. Like, it was kind of like, I hope you're not an axe murderer. And it all, he ended up being a cool dude, and we had a good time. And he raced it. And it was, at the moment, all I wanted was, I want this to be over. I just please get the fucking record. That's the nerves. Kenny said we had an 11-second car, so all we had to do was beat 12.66. So I was just like, "Dude, just get it." And as you know, he didn't get it. And it just got harder, it's like, and then once the car was, breaking down and the thing was rubbing on the belt, and like, Jesus Christ, it was such an awful day. But Mustang Mikey, Ray, and Don and us hung out, had burritos. It was one of the coolest days. They shielded a lot of the depression, because that was the moment when I knew there's no way to tell this story without mentioning Kenny, because I had an out. If Ray had gotten the record, right, like that first day, if he'd gotten the record, I could have just said, Kenny couldn't make it, so I hired this guy, and that would have been it.
Right.
I never would have had to get into any of the stuff with the car. But once he didn't get it, and then I had to do it, and then things broke down, at some point I'm like, fuck, they're going to start wondering why I keep doing it. Like, I'm going to have to tell the truth here. I can't hide the fact that this isn't working and there's all these problems, because he's not involved. Even if he was involved over Zoom, and he could have told me, like, there were so many ways we could have made this okay. He just disappeared. So there's nothing we can do about it. So that was the takeaway from that, was I just want to get this over with, which is why I inevitably did it. And just, and then, the big reveal obviously was, man, just me losing some weight and taking a couple things out of the car is actually enough to knock off just enough time to do it.
Yeah. But
sorry. Pete,
I was just going to ask, so obviously, as you said, had he got the record, and you could have hidden the fact of all the stuff of Kenny to respect your brother, and you love him at the end of the day, without sounding horrible, the movie's amazing, and that being human instinct is we love to see that side of it, you know, and it's what makes the film. Do you think the film would have been as good without that?
Good, but I don't care. Like, I just, you know, my family, like, I hear you. You're right. Like,
Yeah.
from a filmmaking perspective, if I was at home watching a reality show, ooh, that's a lot more fun. But
Yeah.
I don't give a shit because it's my dad and it's my family. And
Yeah.
no, I didn't. And the way part 2 ends up, I still watch part 2 and I'm frustrated because I know what that movie was about to be.
Yeah.
We were fucking moments away from not Don, but
Mhm.
Kenny at the bar. And I every time I watch it, I mean, you mentioned in your review that you liked 1 better than 2. Well, obviously, 2 is it's all one story, and 2 is basically the end of the story, and the end of the story isn't great, and it's hard, and it's painful, and it could have been better, you know, and everyone's like, well, maybe there'll be a part 3, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think there's going to be a part 3. I mean, maybe there's a guy in France trying to race his car, and if he can get the record and I can film some stuff and Kenny's willing to, you know, have another interview, I would happily pass the baton, which is what I wanted to do to begin with anyway. But
right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's rough.
We've got an idea on that anyway, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we're getting to the point where we have no choice but to go into 2 here.
Yeah, well, the last question I've got, Adam, for you in terms of Asteroid Part 1, unless Pete, of course, has any questions, is in those kind of like final moments when you realize, right, you're going to have to drive the DeLorean. You take all this kind of excess weight out of it, and you're like, right, okay, well, this should maybe give me that push. So there's a couple of times you try that until eventually you do get the record.
Right.
But how did you know in that last time you rode the car, like, right, that was the time, I've beat it?
I didn't.
Did you not like the feeling when you ran the car up, being like, right, this is it?
No, every single time I'm like, I think that's it. Like, how the fuck do you know what 2/100ths of a second feels?
Yeah.
You just don't fucking know. And that's what was so frustrating. You see, the first 5 times I do it was one day. Actually, no, I think 6 or 7 times because I get it on the first try on the last day. But on that one day, that lady hands me the slip and I look at it and I'm like, what? Like, because it felt, I'm not a professional drag racer. I don't know what, it felt fine. The only times I notice is like the skidding, like the, you know, because you're like, okay, well, it's not catching right. And that was the, you know, people keep thinking it was the shit that was on the back of the DeLorean that I took off that helped. That's actually not true. I could have kept all that on. It was the 50-pound battery out of the front that I took that out, it made the car go zoop, and all the weight went on the back wheels and it didn't skid.
Right.
That way, the car lifts. The car lifted up, and before it was staying down. So these back wheels were going like that. That's what actually did it. It was the weight from the front that allowed the wheels to skid, and then it took off. The launch was better, and you know, I compare the two and see how it keys in and allows me to get into the fourth gear. So yeah, it's very interesting. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't mind drag racing. Like, if you're in a car that's supposed to go that fast, there's a really cool science to it, and I can see that as a hobby. Not with that car though. Jesus Christ.
Definitely not.
Just broke last summer. I mean, like, all sorts of crazy shit happened on that car. It's like, should not be drag raced ever.
No. Man, when that time happened though, I was on the edge of my seat because you know, obviously, as it playing out before our part, you know, where the ticket lady's gonna be. And then when you get that time, you're like, where the hell's this ticket lady? Where are they at? And I'm like, where's she gone? Is she gonna break? What?
Again, talk about another organic thing that was so hard to walk away from if I hadn't released the movie. The way I get that final ticket is so fun.
I'm just going to say that, just on my notes. And
the fact that I had to see my cousin coming up and be like, what? What happened? And, you know, it was, I mean, what are the chances, right? You know, and Don, blind ass, couldn't see the fucking numbers. So he didn't know what the time was either. And he's like, I think it's this. And like that, it was that much chaos trying to figure it out. Wow. Yeah. It's such a good ending. It's
Yeah.
such a feel good ending, like to what it was a horrible story. Like,
Right.
no, I adore the rah-rah feel of, you know, it's real reality, man. It's, you know, so many reality shows have to force all this drama, you know, producers have to like make all this shit up. And boy, when there's a real story, it hits you. I mean, it does feel, and I don't even feel like I'm that guy anymore. So when I watch it, I'm just rooting for this poor bastard, dude. He has no, you clearly, I had no business being in that car. You watch me take that helmet off the first time, I'm not happy. Like my legs are shaking. That's not who I am. It's not what I do. So,
Take all my notes off when you mentioned it. But no, I mean, you say about the ending there. I mean, I first watched it. I heard about it through the Back in Time documentary, and so I decided, right, I'm going to find this, and it was on Prime, and I put it in my to watch list. And one night, my other half said to me, "What should we watch?" I said, "Well, I really, really want to watch this." Now, as you can see, everything I've got Back to the Future related has to stay in one room. Right? I'm not allowed out of this room. And when I mentioned it, she went, oh, you know. And I said, "It's not about Back to the Future. It's about the car." And she went, "Just put it on." So I put it on, and she just sat there like this. And then after about 2 minutes, she's like watching. And at the end, she literally sat there and she's going, and she went, "Yes!" And then when I first got in contact with you, Adam, was when my stepson had a tooth extraction, and he loves cars and he knows ins and outs of cars and all sorts. And I said, "Let's watch this." And he went, "Yeah, all right, let's put it on." And he did exactly the same thing, led on the sofa in agony after having a tooth removed. And when you hit the record and you found out, he just went, "Yes!" from the sofa. And it's just one of those, it just was perfect.
It's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me, because I edit in a way, I try to get people to like something that they would never like. That's how I think. How do I make someone who doesn't like cars like this? How do I make someone like, so that's where my focus is. And it actually pissed off a lot of the car people that were like, "Man, I watched this movie thinking it was about fucking cars together. It's goddamn family drama." Like, and I knew I was going to piss those people off, or they wanted more Goldie Wilson or whatever. My goal was to get your wife or the girlfriend that is fucking stuck watching one of your stupid movies again to actually go, "Oh, wait." You know, and yeah, some of the absolute best responses I get are from people that don't give a shit about Back to the Future, don't give a shit about cars, but could feel that there's just a genuineness, you know, that you can't fake. And I'm very, very happy to hear that. Thank you so much.
So much so, we have one of my wife's friends living with us at the moment. Oh, sorry, girlfriends, friends living with us at the moment. And I said to her, I was doing this interview, and she said, "Oh, what's it about, Back to the Future?" And I said, "No." And my girlfriend turned around to her and went, "Oh my God, no, it's a really good documentary. It's brilliant." There you go. If you have her approval, man, then you've completed life.
Unfortunate that I can't get that across in trailers, because I know the majority of people, if your wife was flipping through shit on Amazon, she would never, ever stop at that. But there's nothing I can do. It's not like I can't put the fucking DeLorean on the cover. Obviously, I got to do that. You know. So,
but now in the review on the poster, you could put Pete Hardy's girlfriend says it's amazing.
Right. I ought to do it.
Yeah. No, definitely. And Pete, thanks for sharing that story, man. I knew about part of that story, but not the full thing. Mine's not as much as like a magical experience as that is. Mine was literally just on my mobile phone on the sofa. I was watching the movie, but at the same time, like, I've got to admit that I had goosebumps when that moment happened, because for me, I haven't got a single clue about cars whatsoever. My dad does. So if I ever have a problem, I'm like, "Dad, I'm stuck. Can you help?" You know. But seeing you, and like, I have an admiration for anyone who knows anything about cars, because I don't. So, you know, like, having that journey. And if anyone watches, to be honest, I know in my review, you know, I did generally say, like, look, any negatives is if anyone's a car enthusiast, they may not, you know, this is not what it is. Like, for me, for me, it doesn't bother me, but I just put it out there. But at the same time, if anyone watches the trailer or reads the plot synopsis, it doesn't say watch one guy take apart his DeLorean bit by bit by bit for an hour and a half to get to the end of this movie. It's written plain and simple what the plot is.
Right.
So,
well, the good news is I also did an interview with like diehard car guys, and I'll be honest, what they said was what made it difficult is we saw mistakes and we couldn't help you. So they actually had a different angle on it. They saw what was coming. They knew, I mean, the first thing they said was, why the fuck didn't they just get a crate motor to throw it in there? A crate motor, you can buy motors already put together. You don't have to worry about rocker arms. You don't have to worry about any of that shit. You just buy the LS3. You spent more than enough fucking money. Like, you could have just bought a already made motor and then it wouldn't have had any of these fucking problems.
Oh, wow.
And, so they knew a lot of, I have a lot of respect for the people that did it the right way. The problem with the car community sometimes is ego is so high, right? You could have done, and I got a nice group of 5 or 6 people that they really just said, our heart went out to you because you know nothing about cars. And the one person who did know something about cars made mistakes that you're going to pay for forever. Yeah. That's the thing. Now, that was right when it came out. The car's now been running for 5 years. We've actually gotten through a few, if you make it this far, you're probably okay with A, B, and C. So I'm feeling pretty good today. So I don't know. Let's just see what the next couple of months have in store. But it has been performing pretty well. I can even start thinking of preventative maintenance stuff now because there's not constantly putting a fucking fire out, literally.
Well, I was just about to say, kind of wrapping up on the first movie, anyone, unless Pete has any questions, is we've touched on it already in the stream, but the first movie ends with the DeLorean on fire, literally. Right. And on the side of the highway, it seemed you were. And same. I was like, after all that's right. The result of it. So obviously it hooked me in immediately. I was going to watch part 2 anyway, but it hooked me and being like,
man, what a shitty cliffhanger. Good night, everybody.
Pete, do you have any last questions on part 1?
There was 2 things I wanted to say. Was the comparison of the 44 100ths of a second, if I'm right in saying, between the way you did it with the signage in the background, amazing. So your question earlier is, how am I going to know what the difference of 44 100? Simple. Watch DeLorean, Fastest DeLorean Part 1, then you'll know what the difference is. Because
that answers Mike's question, because Mike was like, "Well, how did you know?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't fucking know, because look, here's the Y and the P that are like you couldn't possibly know." Now, again, I knew if I was hitting the shift light, like I had a shift light that told me you're about to rev out, meaning you get to a point where it's not going to go any faster. You got to go into the next gear. So you want to get it all the way up and then all the way up. And I could tell if I was hitting that right. But so much of it required, my tires to be making contact with the ground. There's all these other things that come into play. I try to explain at the end. Thank God my fucking GoPro placement was like one ball. Like, that was just lucky. I think I had taken it out and then I just kind of put it where I saw the suction. And then when I put those 2 videos up, and I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe how perfect it is. I didn't even really have to Yeah, it is a really good.
My dog, if you can hear that.
I did. But it is a really good explanation of how the shifting made it work. And yeah, the car guys like that. They were like, somebody explained that. That's good. So
cool. Yeah. So there was that, which was and like the way you just explained things at the beginning about drag and lift and things like that. For me, who I don't know anything about cars, I can oil change a car. That's about it. And I can pump the tires up and I can drive the damn thing. But it was so good the way you did that. So I just wanted to comment on how well you did that to explain it for the dummies sort of thing.
But I was a dummy. Like, that's the point. We're not dummies. We just don't know. Like, I explained it because I needed to fucking understand it. You know what my first couple phone calls to Kenny were? They were the stupidest fucking phone calls you've ever heard. Like, asking, and he, to his credit, he sat there and answered all of them. And, you know, he was so excited to do this because it was his older brother and we got to spend all this time together, you know? Like, it was really a very bonding moment for a couple months anyway.
Yeah. Which brings me on to my next question. You say, obviously, you weren't a car person. That obviously explains why when you had a new engine put in, more powerful, you drove down the road and didn't think about the fuel economy and had to fill it up on the side of the road.
Oh, that's not why, though.
Oh, is it not? I thought it was you just run out of fuel.
No, Kenny didn't put a working fuel gauge in.
Oh, of course, yeah. Sorry, I'll take that back.
There was no emptier. You had to guess. So, unfortunately, the only way you would know if you had filled up the car is obviously if you know some of the gallons. But when the thing clicks,
Right.
I was like, okay, so I filled it up. Well, unfortunately, the way the DeLorean gas tank is, sometimes it can click early just because of the way it fills up. It's just a weird old thing. Yeah. So it clicked early, and I thought I was on a full tank when, in fact, I wasn't. But again, the first thing I did when I came home was fix the goddamn fuel gauge, which wasn't difficult. It just took a little time to like rewire some shit and test a few things. And that's where my slight engineering background comes in. You know, just give me 12 volts, isolate it, make it work, then put it back in, that kind of thing. So,
there's two other things very quickly I want to ask you. Firstly, obviously, do you have shares in the glasses yet?
I wish I did, man. I wish I did. You are not only not the first, you're probably the 20th person who has asked me for a link to these
For anybody who hasn't seen the films, basically throughout the film, when he sat with when Adam sat with Mayor Goldie Hawn and Don Fuller, he's got these glasses with whiskey in, and tonight we finally had a drink together with these glasses, and I ordered some. So that's about it.
It's funny. It got so much exposure that I had to address it in the second one. But, you know, the first one, we're just playing with the glasses and drinking or whatever, not even thinking about it. But I got so many goddamn emails saying, dude, those are crazy glasses. Where'd you get those glasses? That I literally had to like address it when I was talking to Jay about how it's a good way to know if you've had too much to drink.
Here's a question, Adam. When you take your DeLorean on gigs, does anyone ask for the glasses to be in DeLorean as a little touch?
No, usually they don't want me to drink and drive, like actually at the same time. No, so not yet, but we'll see. It might happen.
So there's one more question I've got to ask, and I hope that nobody's ever asked you this.
Ooh.
So I wanted to find a question that nobody's asked you. Now, my job, as you know, is a handyman. And my main job is I work with TVs, aerials, anything AV, things like that. So one thing that really bugged me throughout both 1 and 2 was your TV in the bar was forever on a tilt like this.
Right.
Why the hell was it on a tilt like that and not flat?
Because of the angle of the sun that comes in and puts a bad reflection. Straight up.
Fine. There we go. That answers, because it was one of those things that just... As I look at TVs, and it's like, okay, that TV's not straight; it's tilting upwards rather than downwards.
No, I on purpose. I mean, instead of flat, I tilt it down just a little bit. So because you would have been seeing the reflection of everything that's happening in my yard,
right?
Why, do you see what I'm saying? I needed it black, so I just went and then simple as that.
That makes sense. So hopefully nobody's ever asked you that question before.
Ever asked me that before.
Awesome.
Yes. I'm a geek like that shit too. It was just, how do you get the shot? You know, how do you get that thing out of the fucking shot? You know, simple as that.
Cool. There we go. Back to you, Mike.
Awesome. No, well, awesome. So we're going to move on to Fastest DeLorean Part 2. And this came out in 2019. I think it came out just like a year later, I believe, or year and a half.
Actually, it ended up being on the Back to the Future Part 2 anniversary. I think it's like November.
It was November
2019. It was the exact 30-year anniversary of Back to the Future 2. Not intended. It just kind of worked out like that. So very cool.
The question I've just actually thought of is when you were going to be premiering The Fastest DeLorean Part 2, how did you premiere it? Was it just straight on Amazon, or did you have like a private screening event? Or
I have a film distributor that basically has said, we like your shit, so whatever you're making, let us know, and we'll try to distribute it on all the streaming platforms we possibly can. And at the time, as of February 21, Amazon said no to all documentaries from now on. They just did a blanket thing. So up to me and Michael, those 3 will stay on, but they're not taking any more. Unless I can somehow get a deal with Amazon, or I mean, fuck, it feels like every year it's a different. Now ad-based video on demand is the next big thing. I think Netflix is even going to go to ad-based, and I can't stand it because I can't choose where the fucking ads go. And as a filmmaker, it makes me crazy. But it is what it is. And that's the future we live in. At least it gets distributed worldwide, and that's fine. But no, I basically just, say when it's going to be, and then it goes live, and you go from there. This is not a money-making venture. It has done very well, but like meeting Michael made more than 1 and 2, Fastest DeLorean 1 or 2 together in one fucking quarter. We think Back to the Future is a big deal until you see Michael Jordan is like, but you don't really know what's going to be what, But I just decided once I got a film distributor, I'm going to put out a movie every year because I like telling stories, and I got a fucking lot from all the journey things I've been through, and I don't want them all to be about me. They're going to be, unless something comes into play that I can focus on, and but I'll play those cards as they come, But it wasn't a premiere. We didn't run out of theater. I got asked to be in Paris and Marseille in 2018 and 2019 doing a DeLorean event with some cast members of Back to the Future, and they showed the film, which was the coolest thing because I know my film isn't going to sell any tickets, but boy, is it a really great way to make your event better, because everybody who watched it had the same reaction you guys did, and it was a surprise to them, and it was like added value. Then I was signing autographs and everybody's all excited, but you can't really put it on a poster and expect people to pay to go to an event to see it. It's one of those weird little underground, once you've seen it, you tell everybody you get it. And it's great for a group of people that are already in love with, Mayor Goldie Wilson and Marvin Barry and those people, right? So Harry Waters, and so I've had a great time. The fans have been absolutely amazing to me. I felt I was signing fucking hoverboards, dude, next to people from Back to the Future 2, and I'm like, this is insane. Like, I don't want to ruin your props, man. Like, I signed one of what were those Eagle Moss DeLoreans?
Yeah.
$2,000 fucking things you had to put together. I signed the hood of that, and I was like, "Are you sure you want me to sign the hood of this? Because you can take it off with a little acetone if you want to." Because I was like, "I can't." He was like, "Oh, but you made the fastest DeLorean. It's total." I'm like, "Okay, dude, it's too weird." But fans have been amazingly gracious. I can't say enough about how nice they've been.
So, okay, well, I've got a question, and I'm not sure if you've been asked for this before either, so I'm going to try. But I'm sure, Adam, you probably get approached like guys like me or Pete, like who's just come across this documentary for the first ever time. And, we're now in 2022, 4 years later after the first movie, I've just come across this. With the popularity that it's had, and as you mentioned, they've both done, really well. Have you ever thought of kind of like doing like a tour, kind of like showing this movie around places, and maybe, like you and Don and come around, or?
I mean, we did the drive-in. And me and Don went out. Don said, "Listen, dude, I'll help in any way I can," because we have a good. I mean, we hung out in Houston for a couple of days doing crazy shit. We had the best time. Again, the problem is I don't think you know how special it is until you see it. So it's pretty difficult if it's not part of another thing,
right?
To make it. I would love to, but it's funny. Back in Time dealt with this too. Back in Time was going to do a tour, and they had a band they were going to tour with the car. And what they found out quickly is it's a documentary. People want to watch documentaries at home. They just do. That's just the way that kind of shit works. No one's crowding a theater to watch a documentary. But if it is part of another fan event, Comic-Con, if those kind of things, it does so well and people are so happy with it that absolutely, it's just a matter of the right people. I have seen Steelers. Do you know that's a event? Yeah. They actually signed me a couple years ago, and then I never got in my bio, and then they signed other people, and like they were really high on the movie as well and wanted to have it be part of an event in the UK, and I would do that in a heartbeat. I would love to do that. It would just have to be, the timing would be right. And listen, it's the internet. This movie's never going to go away. It's kind of what I kept trying to tell Kenny. I said, and until I'm old and purple, I will be talking about this movie, right? I mean, it's never going to go away, ever. Like, it is going to have legs forever, because, personal, genuine stories like that, and it's got a DeLorean in it. It's over. That's going to be there forever. So, yes, I would love to. To answer your question, I'd love to. It's just a matter of what's the best way to make it economically feasible. I mean, when you're a promoter, you're trying to sell tickets. You ain't selling any tickets with Fastest DeLorean. You just aren't. But you are selling tickets if Mayor Goldie Wilson's coming out, and you know what I mean? If you have other people involved and it's part of an experience, absolutely. It fits perfectly for that, because it does have the Back to the Future thing, but it's this other, it's kind of like its own little avenue. So definitely.
Yeah. Well, no, that's understandable, because I was always wondering a little bit as well, like if you'd ever done like Comic-Cons or like, about the whole thing with the Scene Stealers. That makes sense. Obviously, you got
right. We have and would again, but again, it's got to be kind of a perfect situation for that.
Sure.
So and that was the nice thing about with Don, was that we would do a screening, say Mayor Goldie Wilson's going to be here, showing his new movie Fastest DeLorean. Like when we threw out the first pitch, so. That actually that could get some butts in the seat. I'm not going to, but then they would like subconsciously end up seeing something that is really good, So that's the nice thing, is no one leaves disappointed. And I've been a part of a whole lot of things where you thought you were getting one thing, you got something different, and you were pissed about it. I don't know many people that had a bad experience watching this movie. Not to toot my own horn, but it's just one of those once in a lifetime kind of stories that it's hard to not please people with it, for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely, because I mean, the differences with the Fastest DeLorean in part 1 and part 2, of course they obviously connect them together, that's the whole point, but they're two complete different stories. Because the first one's of course obviously about the building DeLorean, doing the track and such, and then the second story is about the aftermath, but also kind of the adventures you go on and the recognition starts to get. And of course, you and Don going to France, like that part was awesome. I love that part.
The guy asked the Sven. Oh my god, that question has got to be one of the greatest.
Definitely. One question I've got about Sven is, where's his body buried now?
Oh no, I saw him. He just liked my picture of my Steam Deck. I got the Steam Deck is the new PC, handheld PC.
Yeah.
I got mine, and so I was playing, and Sven liked it. No, I love him. I'm sad I can't see him all the time. He was one of the nicest people, and that question broke the tension that I felt. Like, you don't get it, like, especially in front of a huge crowd, to sit there and answer questions about Kenny, not knowing, are these people going to hate me? It was and for him to say, "Where'd you bury the body?" was just like, oh, it's just such an okay, the crowd's with me, as much as it sucks to have to say shitty things about your brother overseas, at least I'm not going to get lynched. It's just it is scary, but
it's a perfect icebreaker in the world.
It's so perfect. You can see both me and Don just we're just like, woo.
well, that's the thing, because I can only imagine this, Adam, of course, but from your side, when you sit down and you do an interview like this, or like a casual chat kind of thing, in a sense you can kind of control like a response as such, but when you're in front of like a live crowd, they're not going to hold any mercy, really. They're going to be like, right, this is what I want to know. Like,
and as I said, there are some people to this day that believe you do not speak poorly of family members period. If you can't say something nice, you don't say it at all. And
Right.
if it had been my father,
Mm.
that movie would not exist. If it had been my son, that movie would not exist. It would never have happened. I would have just hit it and moved on. I didn't have that relationship with my brother other than that. And it was a judgment call. And
Yeah.
I still held out hope that he would eventually come back to the table. And we did have a nice conversation in 2019, and he was going to be part of part 2. And, you know, there's still a part of my heart that believes there's going to be a part 3. We're going to sit down and have a beer. And before we die, we're going to put a button on this fucking story. But, you know, I can't control that. And I got to move on. And that's the thing. He moved on 5 years ago. I've dealt with what he did every fucking day for 5 years. And I mean, that's where like legitimate anger comes, because I had to fucking fix his shortcuts. And I still am. I'm trying to take ownership of it and say, nope, it's my build now. But oh, dude, my God, you hurt, and you still haven't responded. Like, he got lawyers involved in 2019. I never heard from him. That's it.
Well, the thing is with that though, Adam, as well, like as you addressed before, like in the stream a little bit earlier, is recently you had maybe an issue with the DeLorean, and then you know, it's something you found a different problem this time, and it's something maybe Kenny did or didn't do, you know, of course. So as you mentioned, I can totally understand like how you feel like, right, you're facing this problem every day. Despite if anyone's seen these movies, you know, take that out of the equation. You know, if something happens with the car, then yeah, I can imagine you feel that.
And the other thing is that it was always understood when he did this that he would help me for the next several years, because he knew I knew nothing about any of this shit. And you don't build a fucking hot rod, you know. And he also said he'd write like a Bible that would show me everything. He didn't do that. And he handed it to me not working. And then you put me in a situation that, honest to God, 9 out of 10 people would have had to have walked away.
Yeah.
Right.
There was no choice. I just happened to be, and he's lucky I happened to be a guy that wasn't going to give up. And so he can at least say, fuck it. He still has on his website, has pictures of the time machine and the fact that he built the fastest one in the world. So, you know, he's still, you know, I think that's kind of stupid because if anybody looks that up, but, you know, he's lucky that it didn't become a piece of shit that stayed blown up on the side of the road. I've let it continue. But yeah, I still hold hope that at some point something's going to click and he realizes I just want to have a beer and hug him and move on. You know, but it has, here's the thing. He just doesn't want it to be on camera. And I'm like, dude, after what you have put me through, you owe it to the people that know this. This is no longer our story anymore, man. Like, this has gone into the homes of a bunch of people. Like, I got crazy numbers. Like, the first quarter that this came out, holy fuck, it kind of freaked me out how many people had actually seen it. I mean, you only make a nickel, you know, when people see it. But when you get a several $1,000 check, you're going, hang on a second, how many nickels in $5,000? You know what I mean? So that's why I think he owes it to people to just sit down. I'll cover your ass. I'm not going to grill you, dude. Like, we all know what happened. You got in over your head and you ran away. So all you got to do is go, God damn, I got in over my head and I ran away. And I'll be like, yeah, son of a bitch. That's what happened. And then we can hug and go take a ride in the DeLorean. You know what I mean? So it's such an easy fucking thing to do. So maybe someday, man. Maybe someday.
I think maybe as he gets older, he'll realize he's missed out from being with his brother and things like that. I mean, me and my brother fell out a few years back. And then I realized, especially when some tragedy happened in a family, you kind of realize it's not worth it. Just sort it out.
Right.
And he will one day, I'm sure.
Right. And listen, I saw him. My grandfather passed away in January, and I saw him at the funeral, and I just hugged him. And you know, that day was not about us, and that was, you just move on. I think that's the other problem, is he wants to just move on and act like nothing happened. And I can do that obviously at a funeral, but I can't have a relationship with you if you're not willing to like have some real moments where
a discussion.
I mean, come on, dude. Like
Yeah.
I'm not one for burning bridges, but dude, you put everything in my life in danger. I mean, literally my life, my livelihood, I put my kids in that fucking car.
Yeah.
Come on, man. This was you gotta have some responsibility. So
right.
I mean, I know you say that he owes it to the people because we've seen it. We all of us. The first thing me and Mike said when we were discussing to interview was like, "Do we talk about Kenny? Do we, it's the first thing, But what's
I think everybody wants to see us make up.
Yeah, but what's more important is the fact that you do make up, be it on camera or off camera. But are you willing to do it with him off camera?
Well, we did in 2019. I called him out of the blue, and I said I want to move on, man. I said I just want to move on. Let's and he said I was over my head. The only thing that he said that I had a problem with was you didn't give me enough time to do what needed to be done. And I said, while that's true, there wasn't enough time. I didn't make up the time frame. I don't know anything about cars. You told me it would be done in like 8 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, and you gave him a lot more than that.
I gave you fucking 4 months. Like. So I hear you, buddy. But again, you need to take responsibility for that because why would I have made that up? I had a fucking loaner car. Like I didn't, And yes, of course, that should have taken 6 months. Of course, it should have. It should take years. But I didn't. And again, that goes back to just basic accountability. He had told his boss it was going to be 8 weeks, not just me. So, as 8 weeks turns into 9, 10, 11, there's fucking cars in the lot. And, the boss is like, yo, let's get this shit over with. And that's when all the shortcuts happen that end up fucking up the car. So again, it's very easy to know what happened here. There's no mystery. No. The mystery is why you can't just be like, I fucked up. It's going to be a lot better. Dude, give me an honest mechanic over one that won't admit he was wrong every day of the fucking week. Like, I'll take a mechanic that goes, listen, man, fuck this up. I'm sorry. I'm going to make it right. My bad. Yeah. I'll take my car to you every fucking day. But to be like, oh, dude, you didn't give me enough time. And he couldn't say shit about money because I paid for every fucking mistake in 2 seconds. So, the whole thing's frustrating, as you can tell. But
he
might get to an age where he's like, you know what, it's time to make this right. And I'll be
of course. I mean, like, one thing me and Pete discussed is like we would probably personally love to see a part 3. Obviously, if that ever happens, or the person in France ends up getting the record. But kind of switch gears a little bit. Talking about France, Adam, have you got like a favorite memory of being your time in France that you maybe didn't see on camera?
Oh my God. So we went 2 times. The first time when we went, it was just me and my wife, Harry and his partner, and Don and Don. That's it. So we were just like the 5 of us, right? It was just this cool little group. And the guy running the thing, he had an English taxi. And he would drive us around in this fucking English taxi. And it was a small group of like 20 people, fans. And, we got to see Screening Your Fastest Lorraine. Then we went to dinners. And it was the most intimate thing I've ever done as far as with fans. It was just one of the most beautiful 5 days of my life. The second time, and what isn't in the movie, I think there's some movies on the journey that I put out in 2018, I believe it was, that show like there's 3 videos that are longer that show just how sweet those fans were and just how appreciative they were of having access to Don and Harry in such an intimate way. I mean, having dinner with them, right? No. One guy got up and did the lines with Don and did, I'm going to be mayor. Like he did these little moments, which I mean, brought tears to my eyes. It was just one of the coolest things I have ever done. The second year, it got way bigger. Like it became a Comic-Con, basically. You then had like 10 or 15 people. It was in a hotel. I was only there for like a day or 2, and I was running nonstop. Couldn't sleep. It just had gotten so much better. So that was not as fun, obviously, because there just wasn't any time. And you fly into Paris, then you take a train to Marseille, and then you have the day there, and then you train back, and it was just it felt like a job. And it's more like what people like Don and Harry go through all the time, because they're doing these Comic-Cons all the time. And don't kid yourself, Comic-Cons are fucking work, man. I mean,
definitely.
As much as you love the fans, dude, at some point you need to sleep, and it gets really difficult. And that was the first time I saw just how hard that can be. And there's little moments like Sven asking that question, and it was very nice to sign autographs and the fans themselves, and they'd go up and they'd talk to you. And I remember one lady had mentioned that she had a falling out with her brother, and so she was saying it brought her to tears to watch, because they'd only watched part one. And so you have these really cool intimate moments that I don't think are in the movie either. But that was a different experience. And it was just, there was just no downtime. It was like, it was 24/7. Don and Harry stayed later with the promoter, and like got to hang out with his family, and they had a couple days of like actual fun. I had to get right back because me and my wife had babies at home, and we couldn't. We had like 3 or 4 days. It was like really quick. So
yeah, of course. No, that's a cool story. And the thing is, like, as you mentioned, you put it probably the best way out, more than I could. But like, like Harry and Don and stuff like that doing Comic-Cons, because the thing is, by all means, I've been on that like end of it where I've just a fan, and obviously I've met both of them in 2015. But at the same time, when I was there, they're obviously signing all day at the tables, then they're back and forth for a photo shoot, and then they're back at the table, maybe get a quick break, and then they're back once again taking a photo at like a different end of the hall or arena or wherever they are. And yeah, man, firstly, it's just cool to hear like those memories of France, because again, we always get to see a bit of that in part 2. But we don't get to see. It's obviously, as you mentioned, there's some of it in the journey. I've personally not.
Yeah, you go on the officialjourney.com and just go to July 2018 or June. You can see all that stuff, and it's up there. And yeah, that's the nice thing about the journey, is that all the much more in depth and raw shit is on there.
Yeah.
You only have so much you can do in 90 minutes. All of my movies across the board are 90 minutes. I don't like going longer than 90 minutes in a movie. And I'll go a little shorter, but I feel like that's kind of like the perfect moment for a movie. You better be telling a pretty epic story to get past 2 hours. After that, even the Marvel movies is like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Like you could have knocked this out a lot earlier. But
here's testament to what you just said. I said about how excited my girlfriend got watching Fastest DeLorean. I took her to see Marvel's Avengers Endgame. In the local town near us, the local city near us is called Bournemouth. And in Bournemouth, we have the second biggest screen in the country with a 50-to-1 surround sound system, etc. And we're sat in the best seats I paid for. We'd only been together a few months. And in the main fight scene at the end of Endgame, she fell asleep.
Yeah, I mean, you start getting a little bloated. Like, even movies I like, I'm a big Judd Apatow fan. But I mean, goddamn, dog. Like, sometimes he just gets too in love with his characters and he can't cut shit out. Listen, you think there isn't a 3-hour cut of Fastest DeLorean? Yeah. There's so much stuff to go with. But
I was going to ask you, Adam. We've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League. Is there an Adam contrast cut?
I guess you could, man. I'll tell you, it's funny. I just released the official Journey Volume 1, which is the first 10 years of the Journey. And Volume 2 is coming out this year, which explains some of this beard. You'll understand that later. And it's funny. The first one, it's so fast, 90 minutes for 10 years. Part of me went, this might actually be a good 5-part, mini series, because that's starting to become the new way to binge watch content. And I'll be honest, a lot of the stuff actually would work as nice 40-minute shows, as opposed to, but it's just a different type of storytelling. And, I'm not sure what would work or what wouldn't work. My film distributor has just said, the TV series things, they just don't perform as well, because people will give your movie a couple minutes, right? But most people won't invest in a series unless they fucking know it's what they want to do, because they know they're like gearing up, right?
Yeah.
Gear up for a 10-hour, the new Winning Time documentary. It's 10 hours, not documentary, mockumentary. I know there's a bunch of Lakers fans that are like, that's some bullshit. It's a satire. It's not real. But yeah, but yeah, of course, it's just demand, dude. I got the supply. So what are you going to demand? I gotta feed demand.
Well,
Thank you for asking for it.
What do you
For the
got?
people that have done it with 19 hours.
Just for Pete and Mike. I'm probably going to wait for maybe a few more people.
Right.
Yeah. But then the Beatles have just done 700 hours of
I wanted a longer cut of Get Back, by the way.
That was so good, though.
I adored every second of that because I had read about those Get Back sessions my entire life. We read about them. I've read What Happened Every Day. And I almost felt like we shouldn't be watching it because I was like, oh my God, this is so, dude, I could talk for 3 hours about that documentary. It changed my life. I stopped everything I was doing, built a music studio, and went back to, I used to, I was a singer-songwriter in the 90s. So holy Christ, it fucking oh my God, that's how I'm supposed to be. Not that I'm the Beatles, but just that, the songwriting, it's problem solving. It's funny. Editing is problem solving. The DeLorean's problem solving. Filmmaking, there's a lot of life is just how do you solve problems and songwriting is the same thing. You have problems, you try, and I love that. It uses a part of my brain I haven't gotten to use in a long time. So thank you, Beatles. Holy Christ, Get Back.
It was so long that I watched it while I was in bed ill a couple of weeks ago, and I started watching it on the Monday, and by the time I finished it, I was better. It's that long.
Well, I don't know how people that aren't songwriters could sit through some of that shit. There's minutia of the details that I was completely had a hard on for. I can imagine a lot of people are like, how many times are we going to hear?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, we get it. Oh my God. But again, from my perspective, I remember having those arguments, and I remember trying to work that shit out. And I also remember why I did a lot of shit solo, because not everybody fucking shows up on time. And then there's just so many things that were just fascinating to watch in real time. And God, they looked so good. Holy shit. The computer work they did to make 16 millimeter film look that good. Jesus Christ, dude. It's amazing. Peter Jackson, only guy who could have done that.
Yeah, but obviously that's about singing, and I've got in my notes here about firstly the song you wrote for Kenny. Man, I listened back to that and I cried a little bit. Well, I didn't cry, but I had a lump in my throat knowing the story. But the song you sung backwards, that's genius. That's before Coldplay did it.
Oh, everybody's done backwards shit before.
Yeah, so cool.
No, that's really funny. I used to sing my birthday song every year, and that one was, I was just, that's the thing about the journey that's interesting, is not that you're making content for people to watch. Sometimes you gotta fucking make content, because I do 100 entries a year, and you're trying to at least think of things. It's more like, what am I gonna want to look back on in 20 years as interesting? And so there's the discipline of trying to come up with a different way to sing happy birthday every day, which I now do with my kids. And I got to do it on sets, and that backwards way was what a fun little exercise for your brain, to not only play all the chords backwards, but then try to fucking sing a song backwards so it works.
Yeah. That
was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah.
How long did that take you?
What's that, Pete?
How long did that take you?
Oh God, I don't know. That was in 2006. So that took me not that long. I mean, probably if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything, right? So
right.
It wasn't that hard, but it was fun. It was hard memorizing it. I could never do it now. I'd have to sit there and memorize it again.
Right. Can imagine. What we'll do is we're going to be wrapping this up very shortly. Pete, have you got any kind of last questions? I've got
I've got a lot of notes. We could be here for another hour. But
I was going to say real quick. So I kind of explained what one was. What part 2 is literally dealing with the aftermath of not only the car blowing up, but releasing the first movie and all the things that happened, which is its own completely different story. And I have Don is back. I have Jay Aaron, the director of Back in Time, to talk, and then I had Joe Walzer, the guy who redid the A-Car. All good friends that I've known for several years now, and we're happy to come and just kind of, it was easier to bounce off. I felt bad for Joe because he didn't have a whole lot to fucking say, but I didn't know who else do I talk to about rebuilding a car. He was the only guy I could think of about that has had that really weird experience where you're doing really intense things to an icon. Even though mine was a replica and his was the one that you're still drilling holes in the fucking time machine, and the little kid in you is going, don't touch that.
Well, the thing is, Adam, I was going to say about like the part where Joe Walzer comes in and you guys are having a discussion. Like for me, like I found that kind of really satisfying because I was like, finally, someone Adam can sit down with and relate to a degree. Obviously, it's two different types. So he was drawing an A-car. You were putting this crazy engine in, but you guys have an experience.
Right. What he got that most people don't get is there's a pressure to it, and ours were different but similar. His pressure was you can't fuck up the goddamn actual car, right? My pressure was if I don't get this running, my kids won't eat. I mean, they probably would eat, but like that was my mortgage. So it's pressure. And even Joe was like, if I fucked it up, they just would have brought somebody else in, and I would have been fine. I had already gotten paid, that kind of thing. So it is a little different pressure, but he still understood there are moments where you're sitting there. And you could see it in his documentary Out of Time where he's sweating. Like it's not only is there a schedule, you're watching him drill fucking holes in. Yeah, dude, it's scary shit, man.
Well, imagine if, because I mentioned, he said that, if he messed up, he would be fired to get someone else to be paid. But at the same time, he would have been known as the guy who
fucked up the car, right?
Right.
Especially as a fan, like he was so involved in, so that's a big fucking ask, man. So no, all the respect in the world to Joe. Like that was the only guy I could think of to bring in.
I loved how precise he was with that A-car, though.
He did a hell of a job, dude. It's funny because people get pissed about certain things and, you should have used the original this, and they had to like redo some things. And I don't think people really understand the condition some of the shit was in. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, well, it should have been. I'm like, dude, shit was 30 years old and destroyed. I mean, they had it, but obviously they had to redo it. Like that's a question. Do you try to document it exact, or do you try to make it as exact as people remember it in the movie? And that's the question you have as somebody in his position when you're basically redoing the car. You kind of have to make it. And the other problem is, and I've mentioned this with my cars, that there was never one full car with all that shit on it. It was an amalgam of multiple cars from multiple angles. So you kind of have to pick and choose. Do we use this shot where this is this way? And then in another shot, it's turned completely upside down because they couldn't fit a camera in there. Like, so what is screen accurate becomes a very, it's a difficult thing. He did an amazing job considering the amount of shit he had to deal with, for sure.
Well, you're always going to get two sides of an audience. You're going to get like people, like I can only speak for myself and Pete. Where we watch it and we be like, right, well, as you mentioned in the movie, you're researching, like, right, I'm going to change this part of the drawing. You're going to do this. You didn't know exactly what you're going to do, but you're going to try and do it. Right. We sit back and be like, wow, at least this guy has the chops to do that. Or then you go to the other person and be like, nah, you used this part wrong, or you use this cylinder wrong, or this screw, whatever the case should be. So yeah, man, like I agree with you at the end of the day, that A-car, big pressure for yourself. Big pressure. You had your own personal pressures,
right,
to get that done. Otherwise, as you mentioned, your mom, your family, yourself.
It had to be safe, and that was a real moment where my wife said, "You are selling this, right? Like we're not doing this anymore. It could have killed you." I was like, "Please, just let me see." Like I was going to be honest. If I couldn't figure it out, we were moving on. but I was like, I have to know what caused this.
Right.
Because if it's really stupid and easy, there's no reason that I can't get this working again, rewire it and make it so that doesn't happen. And it ended up being the stupid alternator cover was the final piece where you just put the cover on it that came with a goddamn part that shouldn't have taken. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ, Kenny.
Listen, sir, do not take the alternator cover off.
That phone call was
that is the saddest thing of that whole movie, that I didn't record that dude chastising me. If I wish I had the wherewithal to record that and then ask him later, is it okay if I use this? Because you're really funny. That guy was so pissed at me. He's like, well, don't do that. And I'm like, but if I did, don't. I'm like, but if I did.
It's almost like me saying a movie and a documentary different, You're that guy, right?
Yeah. By the way, where the fuck did you not know that documentaries are genres of movie like horror and comedy and drama?
You should see our WhatsApp chat.
Well, it is. But the thing is, I've had a couple of people before saying, like, when I've said it's a movie, and they're like, it's a documentary. And I'm like, well, it's a movie. But then they're like, so it's always like, that's like perfect thing you have to say it as on YouTube. And especially when I do reviews, otherwise you get grilled for it, put it that way.
Really? No, because feature, I mean, the way movies are, the way the Academy thinks of it is a feature-length movie is over 75 minutes, period. That's how you categorize feature-length film. Movie. Yeah. That's all that has to be, is over 75 minutes. If it's under 75 minutes, it's a short. Yeah. That's just how that shit works, man. It doesn't, comedy, horror, documentary, it doesn't make any difference what genre it is. It's just a length thing. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now you know.
I do.
But as you know, I messaged you this week, Adam, and said I kind of feel at the moment know what it feels like to be a DeLorean owner, as my vehicle is currently in the garage. And I just FaceTime them today, and my engine's on the floor in the garage while they repair the clutch.
They had to take the engine to get
they've taken the engine out, and they found that all the shock absorbers are gone, and it's like, as you say, and do you know what? I used your phrase today. I said, well, you need to get this sorted by tomorrow because this is my food truck.
Right.
So thank you for that.
It's a different threats. People don't, people think, oh, you just like nice fancy cars. I'm like, dude, I don't give a fuck. I just want to get to the gig, man. I just got to get there. The amount of everyone's, is it a chick magnet? It's like, no, it's a middle-aged man magnet. And when those middle-aged men come running, all they're asking is, oh my God, like, do you drive it around? Is it fun? Oh, the engine sounds awesome. Don't you like it? I'm like, I don't like anything you think I like. I swear to God. I want to get this fucking thing home and safe as fast as possible. I don't want to be here. Like, sorry.
It's the way when it caught fire, the guy who had the gig with you still wanted you to turn up with it scorched to hell.
Yeah.
Again, another conversation wish I had recorded because of the pause. There was this awkward pause when I'm like, my hands are literally on fire. Like, not fire, I've been singed.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone. I'm like, listen, my car caught fire. It's done. I'm not gonna, and there was just a pause where he said, well, could you possibly still make it if we paid for a tow truck? And I'm like, I guess, yeah. I mean, like, and then in my head, I'm thinking, well, I need whatever, $500 or $600. It was a quick gig. So I was like, I need it now more than ever. I guess we're going to do it. But I mean, but that's a testament to the gigs I do are pretty crucial to a lot of people. Yeah. I mean, when you're on a film shoot, and the film shoot involves, like, we do an Apple shoot or Google or fucking Facebook. I've done all of the big companies, right? They need that fucking car there. Yeah. There is no, oh, sorry, dude. The clutch went out. Like, blow me. Like, you need the car here. We paid you. We'll fucking sue you. Yeah. Because this isn't just the money we gave you. The entire event is around your goddamn car. So it's a very high, or a wedding. Fuck me. Weddings are the worst because it's their wedding day. Like, so yeah, it is a extremely stressful job. made
right.
more so because now it's this crazy gremlin lemon, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I sent you a photo earlier. I hired a DeLorean from a guy near us for an event I did for Parkinson's research, and it was and I watched when I watched the DeLorean, and you see the Australian guy Mustang Mike crying and people crying in the car and things like that. I hired one for this DeLorean event, and when it came around the corner from my house, because the guy said to me, "Oh, it's nice weather. I'm going to drive it down and not bring it on a truck."
Right.
And he drove it because it was only about an hour from my house, and he pulled into the road where I am, and it come over the hill. It was like I started to well up, but I was okay. Then I got in the car, and he said, "I'll drive you to the event," and everybody's outside. I'm dressed as Marty, but as we're coming down, he pulled into a local car park, and I went, "What are you doing?" And he went, "Pete, I have seen 40-year-old men like yourself many times." He said, "I'm going to give you a minute, and then we're going to go." And I went, "Thanks very much."
It's funny, even with all the shit I've been through and as jaded as I am, it's funny. A quick story. I got to be in the dressing room with Christopher Lloyd and Leah Thompson, Don for the Hollywood Bowl, and it was 2015, and you know they were going to show the movie with the orchestra there, and so I was like, we're sitting there at the meat tray and we're talking, and I was like, oh my god, like, when is the last time you've sat through this whole movie? And that perfect old man said to me, you know, it was on TV a couple weeks ago. I watched all three. They're really good. I felt like such a fucking asshole. I'm like, I'm sick to fuck of it. Doc Brown is like, oh, you know what? I was watching. I just flipping on the TV, watched. I sat through all three of them. I'm like, okay. So it kind of taught me that I should maybe check my jaded status a little bit, and like, if he's not jaded, I shouldn't be. So I will say that whenever I do a Marty package, which is I live close to where Marty McFly's house is, so a big package that everybody wants. It's kind of like the best bang for your buck. You get to ride in the car to Marty McFly's house. It's still, the street still has the trees over it. It still looks amazing. I kind of get that feeling again when I turn that car in and I look, and it's like, Jesus, it's like driving into the movie. And I'm a little 9-year-old boy that's how old I was when the movie came out. And I'm like, I remember how this feels. So I still have a little bit of it. The problem, of course, is, oh my God, the fastest DeLorean just kind of destroyed most of my innocence. Sure.
Well, me and Mike are trying to plan a trip maybe next year or the year after to come to the States together and see different bits. So you can take us on that package, I expect.
Definitely. And you got to have a drink at the GolfCon bar, man. Like, it's funny. Somebody from the UK just bought a Marty package. And, you know, I, in passing, mentioned Fastest DeLorean. He's like, oh, I know. He's like, I'll bring the whiskey. Like, and I'm like, yeah, dude, we'll take a picture at the, like, I've had people want to sit at the bar like they're Don and like have a drink. And I'm like, dude, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me, dude. That's so you know.
That's
legendary.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I say we'll wrap it up. But Pete, have you got any literally a final question or anything?
Yeah. No, the one thing I will say though is the journey you do. My very, very quick thing. My father was one of these first people that got a camcorder, and his father, my grandfather, said to him, "Why on earth have you bought that rubbish for?" And he said, "Dad, if you could look back on anybody that you know, who would you like to look at?" And my grandfather said, "Oh, I'd love to see my mother." And Dad said, "Well, when Peter's older, he can look back and look at the family." Now, I've gone back. My dad sadly passed away about 10 years ago, and I've looked back on all the footage, and there's 1 2-minute section that my dad was in. He was always behind the camera. So the one thing I'll say to you I love about your journey is, it sounds horrible to say this, but when the inevitable day happens,
right,
your family will always have something to look back on, and I think that's wonderful.
It goes a lot deeper than that. I mean, I don't want to take up any more time, but like there's something that happens to your psyche, and the kids are figuring this out now, is that their memories are becoming the videos. Because I produce a little video, and we have journey nights where the kids are like, can we have a journey night? Can we have a journey night? And they get to go through their entire life.
Yeah.
Right? And relive it and get excited. And, you know, my daughter's getting into editing and she's like, well, when you die, do I get to do your memorial video? I'm like, yep. And like, can I keep doing it? Like they're kind of getting this idea that as long as you document things honestly, you never lose, you know, like, you know, when you're with my wife, you know, we say, man, I wish we had like a 2-year-old, you know what I mean? Again, you know, and I'm like, I got a whole bunch of fucking video of exactly what 2-year-olds are like, and they're not as fun as you remember. It's real, and once you watch it for about an hour, you go, okay, I kind of like 8 and 9. Those are pretty good fucking years, you know. So there's something about the honesty of video that you can't really fake it, man. Like, you know, good God, dude. Sometimes it exactly what you're saying. It really kind of cements certain things that would have faded in time. You know, I only have like one video of my grandmother, unfortunately, and one audio tape. And my God, how I wish I could see and talk to her, you know, just hear that voice. And, you know, it's somewhere in your brain. And you're right. My kids won't have that. Their kids won't have that. And in essence, I actually won't have that.
So the only other thing I wanted to say, a couple of other things I wanted to say was that it's an honor to talk to you. We've spoken a lot over text message and things like that. But for me personally, when I sent you that message to say, look, I'm watching this with my stepson, I never expected a reply. And so it's an honor to finally speak to you in person. And I hope one day I can come over, have a drink in the bar, have a go on a golf course. And we'll get the Marty package while we're there. It'd be great. And
real quick, I love it when I get texts from people that are just starting the movie because I'm like, oh shit. All right, 38 minutes and 25 seconds. Some shit's about to go down, and then you're like, what the fuck?
Is there somewhere I can buy a Fastest DeLorean t-shirt?
No, I can probably get you to have one shipped there. Yeah,
superb. And I'm sorry, Mike, if I step on your toes here, but obviously we've already asked about whether there be a Fastest DeLorean 3. But my idea is this, and I queried this with Mike, and he said it's a cool question. So Back to the Future is a massive success. We've got 1, 2, and 3. Now we've got the musical, which I know you probably haven't seen it yet, but it's phenomenal.
I almost flew out for that first one in 2020.
Sorry, say again.
I almost flew out in 2020 for that first one. I was this close. I had a place to stay and was going to go to it.
All I'll say is hold on, it's coming to Broadway, I'm sure. But honestly, the idea me and Mike had was, why not turn the Fastest DeLorean into a musical?
Listen, dude. All right, this is on you guys. You guys could fucking executive produce it. Like, we need people to really. I mean, I'm happy with the success of Fastest DeLorean, but it is nowhere to the point of it being much more than that. But I know a guy who could write all the songs for sure. You know, it's funny. I think because we live in this Back to the Future bubble, we think, perfect example, Meeting of Michael does more than Fastest DeLorean 1 and 2 in a quarter. Like, there are levels to fame. And because we're in Back to the Future bubbles, we think, you know, all these people know who Mayor Goldie Wilson is. They don't. So I hear you. Oh, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I would love to do a musical. My God, you know.
But it was just the idea that you might not do 3. So hell, you're a musician, turn it into a musical.
Let's find a way. I'll talk to the Scene Stealers guy and give them what they need to do. Let's find a way to have some event where there's a screening and me and Don can come out. We'll do that shit in a heartbeat, man.
Hell yeah.
And just have a. Again, I got to say there is some value to the fact that it is a crowd pleaser. You know, the first one anyway. Part 2, but I understand that I couldn't change it if I wanted to. But definitely part 1 is a great crowd pleaser. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
But if you watch part 1, you can't not watch part 2. It's the same as somebody saying, "I've just watched Back to the Future 2, but I'm not going to watch number 3."
I'll sell Blu-rays of part 1 and 2 at the screening because I'll be like, Would you like to see how it ends? Right this way, sir.
Yeah.
But no, that's been, thank you. It's been an honour, and I'll pass you back to Micah. I'm honoured, mate. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
but I was just going to wrap it up and just firstly, Adam, just thank you so much, Jeremy, for taking your time out and speaking to us both. And honestly, like watching the Fastest DeLorean 1 and 2, absolutely phenomenal movies. And man, like I had goosebumps even in part 1 and part 2. Even when you guys went to France, I was like, I've got goosebumps right now. And again, I was texting Pete telling him that. And I'd say, Adam, just honestly, just thank you so much, firstly, for taking time to do this. And It's been blast talking here. For anyone who's interested, by the way, if you're watching live right now or after the fact, there's links in the description box below where you can actually go buy or rent Fastest DeLorean and watch it for yourself. Adam, have you got any kind of last comments before we wrap this up?
Oh my God, I think I said enough. I said a lot for 2 hours. No, I appreciate the hell out of it. I as I've said, as opposed to real movies, with documentaries, if you have watched this and you liked it, that's you saying I like you, because it is just me. It is my nervous system for display. So for the people that actually felt something, I do feel a bond, because I know what I went through, and if for the people that enjoyed it, we're friends. Like it's I clearly know that we speak the same language. So it's an honor as well for me to know it's still 5 years later, it's still something people talk about.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I say I've only just been introduced to it as well, so I'm sure I'm not going to be the last one you'll get a message from and be like, I've just checked out your movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so guys, again, so thank you so much for tuning in live. We've had quite a few people tune in live as we've been doing this after the fact. And again, thank you, Pete, also for co-hosting today. And again, Adam, thank you. And we'll see you all later.
Adios.
Bye.